this session. In preschools, we have been doing a very common thing while we try to build skills among children, and that technique is play or activity technique. We love as play and activity as teachers because children they love to learn from play and activity. In this session, we'll be learning various types of play and activity. Those can be applied in a school setup while we'll be developing skill among children. So before we do the activities and play in a very fun filled way and learning manner, we need to understand one very important component which we have been discussing over again and again, and that is called the functional activities. Functional activities and generic activities are different from one another. Generic activities are those activities which are either played or done without connecting with the achievement of any specific skill. But when we bring a specific skill for the development in a child and we design a play or activity to achieve those skills and create a communicative link between the specific skill and the play, then it is called functional activities. So this is very important. Whatever play or activities we design for school, they must be functional activities so that a specific skill can be improved in a child. Now, when we talk of various skills, basically in a broader perspective, there are five type of skill which can be adopted in a preschool setup. First play or game is called physical play. Second type of game or activity, we call it as the constructive play. Third kind of play, we may call it social play. Fourth one is something what we call as fantasy play. And fifth one, what we generally have in preschools, they are called rule-based play. So today we'll be talking about the details about these five types of play, when and how such play or activities can be introduced in a preschool setup, that we will understand. And for teachers and parents, it is also very important to remember such kind of play when we try to initiate such plays in our children. Now, first is the physical play. If you look various physical play that we introduced in a preschool setup, they may be including dancing, catching, throwing, climbing, running, hopping, jumping, cycling, dancing. So these are various play that we generally introduce in a preschool setup as physical plays. Now, if we look the learning objective or outcome that is associated with such physical play, they are basically for the improvement of gross and fine motor skills. So if we define a particular gross or fine motor skill with a particular kind of physical play, then it becomes very easy for the teacher as well as for the child to improve their overall motor skills. Then if we consider the play setting, basically the outdoor games or outdoor physical play are done outside and they are meant for development of cross motor skills. And indoor games, various games we do like clay, like like folding of papers, such kind of various physical play. They are basically meant for the development of fine motor skills. Now coming to the play variation, different types of physical play. As we know that in cross motor skills, our various body joints and body muscles are used. So play variation has to be done either in terms of intensity or in terms of different types of play. But important is that all the joints and muscles must be used in any kind of physical play we introduced in the preschools. Now coming to the play participation, how the play will be participated by the children and the teacher. Role for each and every student must be defined. That's very, very important for any kind of physical play. Otherwise, there may be chaos, there may be children running here and there. There will be hardly any control if the roles for each and every child is not defined. Then second participation rule here is that if a particular step is defined by the teacher, then the teacher must ensure that each and every child is following and doing that particular step. No child is being missed out without understanding or without checking if that particular step or particular thing has been completed by the child or not. So if we can follow all such things, then we can bring a very, very good functional activities as far as the physical play is concerned. Then moving to the next play, which is social play. Social play, if we look give some examples, it could be smiling to others, wishing a quiz, role play, dialogue, taking turns, sharing, imitation, pick a book. So these kind of uh, various activities, what we generally do in a school setup, they may be categorized under this social play. Now coming to the learning objective of social play, why we do social play in early child development is basically the overall improvement of social and emotional skill of the child. Then play setting, if we consider the play setting, then mostly it's a role based play and involvement of children for skills like cooperation or cooperating one to other, then social accepted norms of interaction with one to other. So when a child will interact with peers, how that should be. When a child will be interacting with a senior or elders, how that should look like. So under such setting, the social play can be played. Now play variation, sufficient number of games must be created to accommodate skills like social independence, social cooperation, and social interaction. These are the basic components of social skills. So the play variation has to be done in order to accommodate such social skills. And as far as the participation is concerned, then role for each student must be defined, and the student's behavior and job must be observed by the teacher to ensure that the child is following all the social norms that is defined as a part of the game. So if such things are done, then definitely child will be learning the social skills in a very, very effective manner. Moving to the next play, which is the constructive play. Under constructive play, we can give few examples like kitchen set play, like children they love to do a lot of kitchen items in any play setup. Then bricks and mortar game, then clay making, pottery, then paper art, build and balance, block games. So these are various games we can introduce in preschools in order to build that constructive game. Now, learning objective of constructive game is to achieve the overall improvement of creativity skill in the children, also product development skill. Because when a child is given something, the child can imagine various aspects and build various things. For example, when a set of blocks is given to a child can bring any kind of structure by using those blocks. And those are basically coming from the imagination and product development style or skill of the child. If the child is trying to build a very, very complex game, child may manifest that by using those blocks given to the child. Then coming to the play setting, then mostly it's assembling the item. Lot of things we provide for the child to assemble to each other so that the child can create that complete set of objects by joining a different kind of parts that is given to the child. Then it may also include art and craft items when various art and craft items are given to make something, child uses various art and craft items to draw something or make something. So that also is a part of the constructive game. Now, clay and pottery is also part of the constructive game, and the playing dough or clay is a very, very important component in a preschool setting. If any preschools they do not have items like clay, they must have it as a part of their school uh, accessories, because if such clay is not there, then building constructive clay is very, very difficult. So now, for example, a child wants to make some objects like Ganpati idol. Then if such clay is not there in the school, then initiating such play is very, very difficult. So if you do not have such clay in your school, make sure that you have such clay at your school so that you can create such constructive play much, much easily. Then coming to the play variation, we have different types of items, products, and large number of variation is expected from that. For example, we are talking about the clay-based constructive play. Now, when a clay is given, we may create a lot of variation. We may ask the child to make a bigger Ganpati, a smaller Ganpati, a Ganpati with 4 hands, a Ganpati with 2 hands. When we bring such type of variation to a particular play, then child will be also be getting quite creative, and accordingly child will try to create such things in a much, much uh, better way by the time the child will be creating little bit of more number of such or same objects by using the variation. Then coming to the play participation, and mostly child should be allowed to play the game alone under the supervision of a teacher, because when a child is creating something, then child basically uses the self imagination skill or uh, uh, creativity skill of the self while that particular task is done. But later, when the team uh, best participation is expected, then the teacher has to define the roles for each child so that they can come as a team and they create something together. So that should become latter, but first and important thing is that a child should be given the chance to do such activities alone with the supervision of a teacher. Then moving further, we are coming to the next play, which is the fantasy play. And under fantasy play, like storytelling, my hero, what you become, what happens next, pretend play, symbolic play, playing house, flying to the moon, such kind of games are very, very common games under fantasy play, because the objective of fantasy play is to achieve the overall improvement of the imagination skill of the child, and at the same time the communication skill of the child is also gets improved when we bring this fantasy play in the preschool setup. Then play setting for the fantasy game is the interactive with the child on expected situation, because when we expect a child to be imaginative and imagine something, then we have to create a setup or we have to create a background for the same, because children they may not have sufficient number of background to be imaginative, but as teachers or parents, if we provide them sufficient number of background situation, then child may be bringing what will happen next or how the things will happen further. Such kind of things can be brought through the imagination of the child. Then once imagination is happening at the cognitive level, then the manifestation can also be traced through such play setting. For example, we can say that if there is a cloud, then somebody is walking on the cloud. How do you expect that should look like? Then it doesn't matter whether a child is in nursery, LKG or UKG, child will try to put everything through a piece of paper and crayon. So that manifestation is very, very important as far as this fantasy play is concerned. So play setting can be a communicative play setup, or we can provide a piece of paper and give a background and setting so that child can try to manifest those imaginative picture of the background itself. Then play variation, all the known characters or objects is to start with, because some objects, either it could be cartoon characters or it could be any object where the child is quite comfortable with, will start with those characters as a part of the imaginative play or fantasy play. Later, once the child is becoming comfortable with such known characters, then we can build some unknown and random characters which the child uh, uh, may not be aware of. But once the child will start imagine, then child can create such characters out of that fantasy play. And that's the power of such fantasy play, when the children become more creative in terms of creating a new structure, new character, or new object. Then coming to the participative way of doing this game, teachers must start such play by storytelling more, because that's very, very important. When a child listens to a story, the child's basic basic cognitive level thinking will be to imagine various different alternatives that could happen to that story. And when a teacher is telling a story and taking a pause and asking a child what may happen next, then such kind of participatory methods will help the child becoming more imaginative rather than one way of telling the story. And later student may be asked to explain to the whole class a story or a different situation, or what could happen next. So in such situation, teachers may provide a few characters and ask the child to create a story out of that and tell to the class. And some intelligent children, it has been observed that they create fantastic and beautiful stories out of the characters given by the teacher. So that way we can definitely develop the skill of the child in a class setup by setting such kind of fantasy play. And finally, we have got the rule-based play. And rule-based play are those play where the child will be following certain rules. Child will be remembering certain rules, and while the game is played, child has to observe those rules and child has to display those rules being followed. So, for example, various games like Clap and Follow, Dog, Duck and Goose, Remember and Tell, Ludo, Business, Snake and Ladder, Hide and Seek, Hopscotch, Traffic Light Game. So these are few examples of rule-based play in a preschool setup. Now, why we would like to bring such rule-based play to the class in a preschool setup? It's because for the improvement of the overall cognitive skill of the child, and most importantly is the remembering skill of the child. Then play setting, game with given rules and teachers guidance is important, because sometimes when we set some rules and children are being uh, uh, asked to follow these rules while playing that game, most of the times children, they forget and ignore such rules. Here, the role of teacher is to remind them about the rules so that they try to follow the rules uh, very, very clearly while playing the game. And variation in the game, we need to be very, very careful about setting the rules for any game, because we know that the children's remembering capability varies from age to age. For example, a 3 years child can remember one or two steps or two rules, whereas a child in UKG may remember 4 5 rules. So considering such development of children in different class, we may set as a thumb rule two rules for children in nursery, three rule-based games for children in LKG, and four rule-based games for children in the UKG class. Now coming to the participation mode, any games where 2 to 6 children can participate. We can have those games in a school setup, and teachers guidance is very important in such situation, because when there are 4 children, for example, 4 children are being engaged for the play of ludo, then there are few rules, like taking turns is the first rule, that everybody has to take their turn once the previous child will finish their turn. So this is rule number one. Rule number two would be that if your dice is showing two, then you have to move 2 steps. If your dice is showing three, then you have to move 3 steps. So this is another rule which is attached to that particular game. And if teacher's guidance will not be there, then children may not follow the game and play the game with a very sincere manner. So guidance is required, and the skill that the children will be learning, that teacher has to ensure when the game is being played. So these are our 5 different categories of games which can be played in the preschool. We hope that bringing such games to the school and playing it regularly along with the child, and most important thing is that mapping the skill with each and every game or play is equally important when we adopt such games in preschool setup. Thank you very much for your patient hearing, and for any further support and assistance, you may reach out to us through the email and phone number given and reflected on your screen. Thank you very much, and we will be meeting in our next session.